Good evening, friends. Good to see you all. So clearly, I am not Howie. Howie has asked me to sit in with for him tonight, which is always a pleasure and a privilege. So I'm very happy to be here. Let's just give it another minute, let other folks join the room. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure other folks will join us. But the one thing I always like to do before a sit, and folks who are off camera for a moment, if you wouldn't mind coming back on camera, just to sort of give us this sense of community. Often when we sit, we go into our own sort of internal world, and it's easy to feel alone. But remember, we come here Tuesday night because we want to have this experience of Sangha. We want to have this experience of sitting with others. So I always find it helpful, at least for me, just to sort of take a moment before we actually start our sit to, just sort of peek into the other little Zoom rooms, see the other human beings who think this is a good idea to come together. That we're coming from at least two countries. I know we always have Canada, see our Canadian friends here, friends from across the country. Just a little, those of you on your phone may see you doing this. So, all right. Okay, now just, so it's just helpful as we sit, just to kind of sort of orient ourselves in our virtual space before, just to see who we're here with, right? Alone together. So, all right. As we settle in, if you need to move the body, if you've been sitting for a while, or maybe you've rushed to your meditation seat from somewhere else, from work, from dinner. So just taking a moment to get the body comfortable and settled, adjusting any pillows or props. Meditation is just to now start to arrive and go of everything that came before, everything we think that will happen afterwards. Letting go for now of our obligations, to-do list, letting go of any roles that we may play, either our work life, our home life, even dropping in the identities. Sometimes I find it helpful just to almost imagine I drop it all with a big thud, like I'm coming back from a long trip. I just let that suitcase drop. And that relief of being home. nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just allow yourself to continue to land here in this body, in this moment. Letting the body be heavy in the chair, the couch, the cushion, wherever you're sitting. Bringing a sense of curiosity. What's it like in this body at this moment? After the long day, the body's tired, lacking energy. Maybe the body's achy. Maybe there's pain in the body. Perhaps the body's feeling just fine. You notice things like temperature, coolness, warmth. Notice the places where our body touches the ground, or our seat touches the seat of the chair or the cushion. Or we may feel hardness or softness. Start to notice those places that are tight, tense. And we can just breathe some love into those areas. Let them know that if they can, it's safe to release and relax. Drop any mask that we carry. We can just let the face relax, softening around the eyes, the mouth, jaw. Letting those shoulders drop. Expanding the awareness to the whole body. So sensing the shape of the body, the weight of the body, places where the body bends and curves. Notice that. You may also notice how the body expands and relaxes with each breath. Let yourself ride these gentle waves of breath. Breath lead us to a greater sense of embodiment, deeper sense of peace. Of course, noticing when we start to lift off into the world of thoughts and imagination and plans, past and future. Noticed you've lifted off into the world of plans and thoughts. Judge ourselves for it or push them away. But we simply choose when we wake up to that to come back to this body, to this breath. Ourselves enjoy the simplicity of the breath. Be interesting to note when you find yourself lifting off that world of thoughts. Might be interesting to note what is so compelling or so enticing or attractive than simply being here in this moment, in this body, with this breath. Again, we don't need to judge ourselves for it or get too deep or analyze, but sometimes it's interesting just to note what are the tendencies of the mind? What tends to pop up on its own? And again, once you've noticed, you make the decision to come back. It's never too late to begin again. We can refresh our attitude, our posture, refresh our intention of staying here with this present moment. Or how long or how far away the mind wanders. The moment you notice it, you're back. We can celebrate that we're back here once again. So just keep coming back over and over. Welcome back, folks. My apologies for that rather dog-like sounding bell. So I hope that didn't alarm too many people. Um, so welcome back. And so, it's something we didn't do before we got started. I did invite folks to sort of gaze into each other's Zoom rooms, but I always like our tradition of letting folks opening up the mics and letting folks say hello and where they're from. So, and of course, turning on your cameras if you're comfortable. But yeah, just letting folks know who all is here today. So feel free to unmute yourself and let her rip.
I'm Joe. I'm up in Humboldt.
Welcome, Joe.
Jill in Regina.
Stephanie from San Francisco.
Roseanne, San Francisco.
Mary, Santa Barbara.
Hello, Santa Barbara, Mary.
Big love from Nashville.
Hey, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Yo, Joe.
Lee from San Francisco.
Hello.
Howard from that big country north of you.
Hello.
Forest Creek.
Also, we have someone, Shelley from Mesa, Arizona.
Well,
All right. Anyone else
Berkeley.
care to say hello? Berkeley? Hello, Keith from Berkeley.
Bob from
Annalisa.
Go ahead, Annalisa.
Annalisa from Berkeley.
And there was someone else who was speaking up. I didn't quite catch.
Bob from Scottsdale, Arizona.
Hello, Bob.
Laura from Maryland.
Hello, Laura. Anyone else before I mute everyone? Lovely to see you all here. And while I am sort of in the middle here, I'm just going to go ahead and make our announcements now before I sort of jump into the talk. I am both the pilot and co-pilot today, so I'm handing it over to co-pilot Mary right now to just do a couple of announcements. And where's my chat? There we are. Okay, so just a reminder that for those of you, actually it could be for anybody who, there is going to be a retreat at Spirit Rock with the San Francisco Insight teachers, including Howie, but also Eugene Cash and John Martin, Anushka from Napule, Victoria Carey, who was here a couple of weeks ago, and Pam Weiss. And so that's going to be in the end of July through August 4th. And so the registration information is there. And that really is about the folks for the San Francisco Sanghas as an opportunity for us. And even though a lot of you don't live in San Francisco, that's okay. Just the opportunity to come together and to meet other folks in the Sangha is going to be a very special, special event. So, and then just finally, just a word about Donna. This is how this whole thing operates and has been since the time of the Buddha. And so if you wish to offer Venmo, our Venmo information is in the chat, and as well as our PayPal and how to pay by other means. But thank you so much in advance for your generosity. It is always, always appreciated. So let me just pull up a couple things here. Oops. All right. So tonight, what I want to talk about is actually one of my favorite topics, and that is the topic of mudita, and that sense of I'm happy, you're happy, which is what I titled this talk. I'm happy, you're happy. And so, especially this time of year, you may have noticed, I think everybody here is in the northern hemisphere, so we're experiencing spring, right? And so we're getting more light. There's today in the Bay Area, it was just gorgeous. The skies were so blue, the weather was perfect. There's a little bit of warmth, and then you see all the green from all the grasses and the wildflowers and the trees that are blooming. It's just, mm, it just makes me happy, right? I just sort of, I experience the earth right now as very happy. There's something a very joyous energy about spring. And as I'm out and about, I've noticed I'm not the only one. There just seems to be a lightness and a lot of happiness in the air when I, go out in public, and people are also enjoying, the beautiful weather. And since I was last in this seat, I got a dog. And I haven't had a dog since I was a kid. I've always liked dogs, but I was working, and so it didn't seem fair to have a dog. But finally, 2 years after I retired, I went, oh, I can have a dog now. So I got a dog, and but now every day I go out to the local park, right, and I get to see people in the park, and I see how much pleasure people are having, enjoying the sun, enjoying their kids or their dogs, or just being together. And so seeing this happiness, brings me a lot of joy. It's like, oh my gosh, isn't this lovely? And that, my friends, is what is called mudita, right? Sympathetic or appreciative joy. So mudita is the Pali word, right? And so it's this empathic or appreciative joy that celebrates the happiness and good fortune of others. It's this heart that is free from envy or resentment, from covetousness, from discontentment, right? And it touches into this really boundless generosity that we are all capable of, to truly rejoice in another person's well-being. So as you know, mudita, or as you may know, mudita is one of the Brahma Viharas, right? These divine abodes of the awakened heart. And so for those of you who are not as familiar, the Brahma Viharas are these four qualities of the heart. The first and most foundational one is metta, or loving kindness. Other teachers and writers talk about it as friendliness or goodwill, right? Because sometimes the word love can be so fraught. So loving kindness or friendliness, goodwill, however you language it in a way that touches into that quality of an open and caring heart, right? That cares about the happiness of others. It cares about our own happiness. When we think about the traditional metta phrases, for those of you who have a metta practice, you're probably very familiar with these. But the traditional phrases are wishes for happiness and peace, safety and protection, health and strength, and well-being. So, and as we know from our metta practice, is that when we're doing formal metta practice, we're directing this at an ever-expanding group of beings, right? We start with ourselves, and then somebody near and dear to us, and then we go out to neutral, difficult, and the whole world, right? So it's this boundless capacity of the heart to care, right? And so our practice is just opening that up, keep opening and opening, so that we're including more people into that caring heart. And so so that's the foundational, within the Brahma Viharas. Metta is truly foundational. And then the second Brahma Vihara is karuna, or compassion. And this is when you have this caring heart of metta. It meets suffering, right? And some describe it as this quivering of the heart when it recognizes somebody else's pain, or even recognizes our own pain, right? It's this heart that wishes to help, that wishes for the suffering to cease, perhaps to be of service, right? And so same with metta is that we want to, you know, make that bigger, 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 include more people into our compassion and not just those that we know or that we like or those that are near and dear to us, right? So again, that capacity for this boundless compassion. And then third is what we're talking about tonight is mudita, or sympathetic joy. And so again, it's this heart of metta, right? This heart that's caring and open when it meets the good fortune of others. Right? We need to care, and it needs to meet the good fortune of others. And the resulting feeling from that is, wow, I'm really happy you're happy. I'm happy things are going so well for you. Right? So I think we and then of course the fourth Brahma Vihara very quickly is equanimity. And that brings balance, right? That's that sense that can hold the sorrows, that can hold the joys, right? It's a heart that cares, so it's got that metta, but it's able to keep all of that within balance, right? It doesn't get thrown off by everything that's awful, nor does it get thrown off by everything that's great. It can hold everything. It's a mind of wisdom. But today we're talking about mudita. So I think that we've all had some experience of mudita, right? Think about when something good happened to someone who was dear to you, right? Somebody that you care about. Perhaps they're expecting a child, or they got the job they wanted, or they're getting married, or they got a dog. I mean, I have experienced so much mudita in the last month since I got this mutt. People, I mean, especially my dog friends are over the moon, just over the moon happy for me. My cat friends are a little suspicious, but it's sweet to receive that, to be able to sort of witness that and to receive, the mudita of others. And so, and there's a difference, right? When we have some good news and we share it with somebody, right? And it's received with happiness rather than with sort of indifference or jealousy, right? And so mudita, it feels good to be received with mudita, and it also feels good to generate mudita. So one of the things I do, I have a sangha in Richmond called Insight Richmond, and we're relatively small. And there's a couple of people here who are part of that sangha. But one of the things that we do at because we're small enough, we do individual check-ins. We go around and we check in, how, not just how's your practice, but how are you, right? And we started this over the pandemic when we went on Zoom, like Mission Dharma did. And it's been so interesting to watch how when people are sharing their lives, right, because we have this foundation of metta, right, that there's this sense of caring, is that you can see when people are sharing something difficult, right? There's, you'll often see a hand on the heart, or people will send little heart emojis. It's like you could see that people are being touched and moved, by what's going on with other people. And also when people are sharing something that is good, that's happy, that's a success, right? And oftentimes maybe see a little party emoji, or people do, are these like twinkle hands? I don't know what they're called, but anyway, just a little like, yay. And so you get to see how we can move from this, place of having our heart almost broken with somebody, right? To this place of like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you, right? When you have this foundation of some metta. So I just want to do a little experiment here, if you don't mind. If I could get some volunteers just to share something good that has happened for you recently. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, oh, I got married or oh, whatever. It could just be, oh my gosh, I went out to my garden and the blah 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 is in bloom, right? And so whoever's sharing, really just be able to feel into the joy of your situation. And for those of us who are listening, just really listen for connection and just to see the expression on the face and to see the happiness. And notice what our reaction is, right? Maybe we easily kind of, mudita is very accessible to you, and so maybe you easily sort of come along for the ride. And for others, maybe we can feel a little bit of tightness or a little bit of envy. And that's okay, right? We're feeling whatever we're feeling. But I would just love if I had a volunteer or two just to sort of share something good that's happened recently for you. Yeah, Roseanne, thank you.
Actually, I've been wanting to share this. It's not a it's something kind of small. I'm getting an echo. That's weird. Um, okay. So I have a view out the back of my house. I have a deck. I have a nice view of the bay, the East Bay. And I really love it because the full moon comes up there and the sunrise comes up there. And I can see cargo ships anchored out there. And the house behind me is empty, actually. And the woman whose property it is planted these bushes that are really trees, and they kept growing and growing and growing. And there was one section that got really tall. I mean, they were like 50 feet tall, and it was blocking some of my view. And so, anyhow, the next door neighbor to the other side, he contacted this woman and asked her, would it be okay if I cut those trees? Because no one's living in the house and they were blocking his son. So I came home one day and that all those trees were gone. And it just really made me happy. That's a long story.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Roseanne. Thank you.
Anyway, and then also I found a pair of scissors in my backyard that I thought I'd lost. I thought they were gone totally. And I was out there one day and they had fallen from the deck down. And I found those scissors. And I was really happy about that too, because they were special scissors. I really missed them. Anyway,
Yeah, it's the small things, right, that can make
it's
us really
small.
happy, the you know scissors that we found, and yeah, and getting the view back is huge. Thank you,
Yeah, it is
Roseanne.
huge, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, thank you for
Okay,
listening.
thank you. Anyone else have something they want to share, something good that has happened?
Okay.
Hey, Jill.
Hi, can you hear me? Um, I I injured a knee, and the physio and I was having trouble healing it, and thought I was going to need a knee replacement and go on a surgery list, and it would take a year, et cetera, et cetera. And I had an X-ray, and the X-ray came back and said everything is just fine. There is no permanent.
Yay.
So I was I'm still very happy. This was a few days ago, but I am still happy.
Yeah, that's good news, Jill. I'm happy to hear that. Else? I'm hoping this is just shyness and not that people are lacking joy in their life. Keith, I see you just unmuted yourself. Yeah.
I had the chance probably 3 or 4 days ago to get out to the bay actually in Richmond. And it was one of the days where there was a lot of wind coming off the water, and it was just amazing to stand there and instead of a calm bay, you see all these waves and you can just feel this wind coming at you. You could smell the spray. And it was just, there was something, it wasn't raining. Oh, I mean, you could just stand there, but there was something sort of, I don't know, just physical about being there that was just beautiful. So really just happy to experience that.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, we can see joy doesn't necessarily come from, an a particular event or whatever. It could just be, just this marveling in nature. It's like, oh my gosh, isn't this wonderful? So thank you. Yeah, Mary.
Yeah, well, one thing I was also thinking too, we had quite a serious rain here the other day, and there were like, warning things going off like every 20 minutes. They thought we were going to have a tornado. It was kind of a little scary, actually. And I was just very grateful to be safe and sound and in my house and to have shelter and to, I felt very grateful for that. I would not have wanted to be outside and to emerge that everybody was pretty much safe. A lot of flooding, but everybody was okay. But once a week, I have a Tai Chi class, and it's in a very beautiful park in Santa Barbara. It's called Alice Keck Park, and it has a big pond with ducks, and it's known for a lot of flowers and beautiful foliage. So, like everywhere you go, they have little signs telling you this tree and that, and it's a pretty large group of, I'd say, about 30 people, and we have this spot, and we just all silently do Tai Chi, which is kind of funny because people walk by and kind of go, oh, because we're so quiet doing it. And it's a very lovely group of people that I really like. And but right now, with the rains and with spring, it is so beautiful. It just is so beautiful. And whether it's the greenery everywhere or the flowers everywhere, it's just spring is really a very beautiful time of year, and especially I think in California and especially in Santa Barbara here too. So I really appreciate it very much. And enjoy your dog.
Thank you.
I'm very
I've been
happy
going,
for you.
thank you. Well, I've been going out to a lot of parks. I mean, that's where I've been spending a lot of
Yeah.
time, which is where this has come up. Actually, it's funny. I one time did a half day outdoor at we have this massive dog park in Richmond called Point Isabel, and I think just watching dogs frolic is a great source of mudita.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're just so joyful.
Dogs and children. I always find that at the beach. I like to watch the dogs and the
Right,
children.
right, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably
Thanks.
make lots of new friends, both dog and human.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. So you can see from those examples that often are, the joys sometimes do spring from difficult, Jill's worry about her knee, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's fine, Um, or Roseanne had this blockage that was causing her, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then also from the rains and the beauty. So, it's always, we can kind of go from this place of compassion to mudita rather, because things tend to be not always just one thing, right? So, sometimes I think we have this impression that joy is a limited resource, right? And we have to wait for something good to happen to us or to be in a good mood. And I think that, from the shares that we had, we can see that it's not just, something good that has happened to us. It's something that we can abide in, right? I mean, and frankly, sometimes in terms of sort of a lack of joy, we can have whole periods of our life that feel pretty joyless, right? Um, but if we can develop this mind of mudita, we get to share in the joy that others are experiencing. So I hope that you found a little lightness when you heard some of the shares. I was looking at some of your faces and you were tuned in. It was like, yeah, I can see that people were happy for other people's happiness, or can recognize, right? Oh, that relief of having a diagnosis lifted, where it's like, I'm fine. That relief of being able to, have like this annoyance removed, you know. So, so we're able to recognize, and we can recognize in others the same wishes that we have for happiness and for love and for well-being, right? And we can appreciate when we see it when it come true, when others are experiencing that. It's like, oh yes, nice. So we would think that this joy, since it is all around us, if we're tuned into it, should be easy to access. Well, the interesting thing about mudita is that it is said that it is of all the Brahma Viharas the most difficult. So, why is that? So, maybe you noticed in our little experiment with just the four folks who were sharing, maybe there was a little tinge of little voice that said, well, what about me? Right? Well, why can't I have that? I wish my neighbor would move their tree so I could see again, right? Or maybe because you didn't know the person very well, there wasn't sort of that foundation of metta, right? There was kind of like, hmm, I didn't necessarily know the person, so there wasn't really the metta there to sort of to develop that sense of mudita. It's kind of like, oh well, that's nice for you, but what there wasn't this deep felt sense. Um, or sometimes what happens is that instead of this mind of joy arising when we hear about others well-being or happiness, is that it triggers some sort of sense of lack in ourselves, or maybe some old story about how good things don't happen to me, or maybe it brings up jealousy or envy, right? I mean, it's interesting. I've because I've been trying to pay attention to this for a while. I know for myself, it is a whole lot easier for me to sort of touch into that mudita it's when it's something that I don't want, or it's something I'm not invested in. Like for instance, I have a friend who, oh my gosh, she went through multiple IVF treatments. She's been wanting a baby for so long, and oh, just over the moon when she got pregnant. And I was there with her because I saw all her struggles with it, and I saw just this joy. But for now, it may have been more difficult for someone who who wanted to have a baby and who had difficulties to see that. For me, I don't want a baby, right? And so it was really easy. There was not a mind of envy or jealousy or anything to contend with. I was just so happy for my friend. But then I've had other situations, and I'm sure we've all had these too, where maybe somebody got a job or recognition or something that we wanted, right? That we thought that so, and I apologize. And so, then it's a little bit harder, right? Then sometimes that mind of envy or jealousy come up instead of this mind of mudita, because there's some sort of story that we're running. It's like, right? So that mind of clinging and greed gets involved. Or another reason is that we may not think joy, it was interesting, we did a month, I think Jerry's part of this community, but we did a month about joy in what was called Cloud Song, is now called Banyan. And what was so interesting to hear people talk about, I didn't know joy was part of the path. They thought, oh my gosh, well, here it is, look at the Four Noble Truths. It's all about suffering, suffering, suffering. You mean cultivating joy? I can do that? That's okay? And so, Buddha, there's a quote today I included in the reminder from Venerable Analayo. He says, the whole of the Buddha's path can be seen as a progressive refinement of joy. Right. And then the Buddha, he said, also said, in when he said, live in joy and even live in joy in love even among those who hate. Live in joy even among the afflicted. Live in joy even among the troubled. Know the sweet joy of the way. Right? And what an interesting way to, because often when we see sadness, what maybe arises compassion and but at the same time, it's like sort of being with that heavy. If you're miserable, I don't know if my misery is going to help the situation at all, right? And so this joyful heart is one that's at peace. It's not necessarily one that's bouncing up and down like a puppy, but a joyful heart is a heart that is at peace. So it's a really interesting way of being able to cultivate joy, even with all the conditions in our life, not just the positive ones, but also the negative ones. So it's a way of also sort of radically transforming our relationship to joy, right? It's not an experience. Sometimes we think of it as an event or an experience, but it's actually a place in our heart where we can abide. It's where our heart can rest in this place of joy. And so we start to learn how to cultivate this gladdened heart, in the midst of our lives that has all the joys and sorrows. So how can we have a heart that is at peace, that ultimately is at joy, even when things are difficult? So when we talk about joy and cultivating joy, it doesn't mean that we want to be a bliss bunny all the time. It doesn't mean that we want to go into spiritual bypassing of like, oh no, that's going to bum me out. I need to be joyful. That's not it. But again, we don't want to ignore it because joy does perform a specific functions, particularly within the Brahma Viharas, right? So joy brings a sense of serenity and kindness. It sort of warms up equanimity so it doesn't fall into indifference, right? Indifference is the near enemy of equanimity. And so by keeping joy, by cultivating joy and having that in our heart, it balances some of those qualities of equanimity. It also is a necessary companion to compassion, right? It's like, oh, okay, there's this suffering in the world, but there's also this joy so that we can have this balance, right? We need to be able to gladden our hearts so that we are able to deal with our own suffering and to be able to be with the suffering of others, right? So we need to have some resources. This cultivating of joy is a way of sort of resourcing ourselves and keeping ourselves going, even when things seem really bleak. So we learn to cultivate joy, right? To understand the roots of joy and to understand what gets in the way of joy. And so that way with practice we can abide. So that's why I think it's, when I sort of asking is like when you're listening to other people, it's like what arises, right? Oh, okay, what gets in the way of joy for me is maybe some envy. Okay, that's something I need to work with, right? Or what gets in the way of joy is maybe, oh gosh, maybe I don't feel like I'm deserving of it. Not, there's some worthiness story there. right? So we don't need to judge ourselves if we can't sort of come in with the mudita. But it's a really interesting thing to sort of to recognize, what gets in the way of this. And so in the suttas, Buddha talks about mudita like this. He says, "O monks," which is us in this case, a disciple lets his mind pervade 1/4 of the world with thoughts of unselfish joy, and so the second, and so the third, and so the fourth. And thus the whole world, above, below, around, everywhere, and equally, he continues to pervade with a heart of unselfish joy, abundant, grown great, measureless, without hostility or ill will. So, Buddha is encouraging us. We need to be able to cultivate this mind of unselfish joy, so that it's not just it doesn't come up just for those who are near and dear to us, so that we can pervade the whole world, so that we can see everyone as part of our family. So there is a formal, just like with metta, there actually is a formal practice for cultivating mudita. And it works very much like the metta practice, in terms of you start with yourself, near and dear, um, neutral, difficult, and then big, 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 as big as you can go. And the phrase that you would use, like metta usually has like 4 phrases. People alter it in different ways. But for mudita, the phrase that I know is, "I take joy in your good fortune. May your happiness continue." I take joy in your good fortune. May your happiness continue. Right? So we would bring to mind, this person or persons and what they're experiencing, so that we can kind of get a sense of what we're joining in with, right? And then we just send those phrases. "I take joy in your good fortune. May your happiness continue." Right? And just like with a metta practice, it's an intention practice, right? We're just dropping these intentions into a bucket, right? And eventually that bucket will fill. And naturally, what starts to blossom, we find, just I think with our metta practice, with all of our practices, I think sometimes the effects kind of sneak up on you, right? You've been practicing, and then you just notice that there's a shift. It's like, oh, wow, that situation used to bring up a lot of jealousy, before. Now I'm really happy for them. It's not there, right? So, and that comes from these intentional practices. So just keep, even though I may not be always feeling it, right? But I have the intention to keep opening my heart bigger, bigger, bigger. And you can also practice this informally too, right? When you see someone or others experiencing happiness, maybe we just, sort of say to ourselves, right? You know, I take joy in your happiness. May your happiness continue. Right. So you can just sort of just remind yourself in mudita when that comes up. The other last point I wanted to make about mudita is that it's also the antidote to the mind of greed. Right. So when we're able to sorry, just lost my place here for a second. Okay, so while we want to be able to appreciate our own moments of joy, when we're experiencing mudita, it's not just about ourselves, right? It's not just joy for the sake of my own personal joy, right? It's shared, right? And so it counteracts this mind of greed that just wants everything for ourselves. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful that you're happy. So, you're recognizing that happiness is not a finite resource. And so when we start to do this, when we start to sort of practice and become more acquainted with this mind of mudita, we start to see that these walls between us start to sort of melt away, right? It's like, oh, that this us and me and others, not so different, not so far away. And also this sense of like, I don't need to hoard all the joy for myself, right? Being afraid that there's not going to be enough left for me. Because when we were practice mudita, we tap into this unending supply of joy. So finally, I just want to close with this poem that it's called Mudita, by a poet called Mary Ann Mahajanraj. And it says, down on my knees, spreading dark brown mulch, double milled hardwood to protect the moisture, enrich the soil. A woman stops and says, I love your house, your garden. They're so colorful. I am so grateful she stopped to say it. I worry that our house is too bright for this neighborhood, the colors too glaring. They shout, look at me. I ask if she lives nearby. She says no, she babysits a child down the street. She does not say, I can't afford a house, a garden like this. She smiles instead and says, I always enjoy walking past your house. It must make you happy every morning. Yes, yes, it does. But I want to say you make me happier. So I just thought that was sort of a beautiful expression of both, the receiving and experiencing experience of mudita. So that is my offering for tonight. I might have room for maybe one quick commenting question if anybody has anything. Okay, well, if not, I will just go ahead and
I'll
close.
say
Roseanne?
something.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I really appreciate your talk on this topic and the way that you put it together with all the Brahma Viharas. It just clarified a number of things for me. And also this topic, mudita, is interesting to me because I've never thought of myself as a jealous person, but the more that I'm aware of mudita and kind of paying more attention, I realize actually I do feel jealous sometimes, and I do feel envious, and there is that kind of feeling, there that I've never recognized. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it can be really revealing, about some of the
Yeah.
other things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Roseanne. All right, so let's wrap it up for tonight. So just taking a moment to settle back in, feeling any resonance of our time together, any resonance of the reactions to the dog barking. So we can take whatever goodness we've gathered here together and we can spread it far and wide to those known and unknown, those near and far, those that are dear and those that are difficult, human and non-human. May all living beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all living beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may all living beings live in peace.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friends. Feel free to unmute and say farewell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Mary.
Mary.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night,
Night, everyone.
everyone.
Good
Thank you,
everyone.
Mary. Good night.
Bye.
Yeah.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, friends.
Bye.
May you be happy. May you be joyful.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.